Okay, we're gonna show how we pick up all these macadamia nuts from the trees all the way out past the drip line, and then we sit them out in the sun until they crack open. They'll start to crack open, and this one is an example. It's starting to crack open. It's not really cracked open all the way. Let me see if I can find one that's cracked open. Here's one that's starting to crack open, because when the shells get dry, they start to crack open. If you can get them at this stage, it's really easy to crack this shell because it's not hard. I'm trying to do it with one hand here. So I just crack that shell open, and then you end up with the nut. Then these nuts have to be dried not in the sunshine. So I would take this out and put it in something else and put it in the shade for a couple of weeks to dry the nut inside. Otherwise, the nut has a lot of oils and water, and if you cracked it right now at this stage, it would just stick to the shell, and you would just end up with a bunch of just teeny tiny pieces of nut. So take that fully out of the husk and let it dry in its shell. But I want to show you here's another good example of one that's cracking open on its own. So it's easy to get it out of the husk, and then we leave it in the shell for a couple weeks out of the sun. If we leave it in the sun, it'll crack open. So the next process is, if they get too dark and they haven't actually started to crack open by themselves, we put them on the ground and hit them really hard with the hammer, and that will let you get the husk off very easily. Can you show how you get the husk off easily? Yeah, so the husk just falls right off. And then we keep the husks right here, and we put them in the gardens because they're just a perfect mix of NPK. They're highly nutritious, add mulch to the soil, keep the weeds from growing, and put nutrients into the soil. So they add a lot of good to the soil. And we've got some unshelled mac nuts. We've got some here that are partially cracked. And over here, Root is cracking some. This is a mac nut cracker. It takes 300 pounds of pressure to actually crack a mac nut, so they're really hard to crack. They're the hardest nut in the world to crack. And then we end up with macadamia nuts without the shells, and now they're raw. And we can either dehydrate them at 135 degrees it takes a very long time, probably almost 2 days to dehydrate them fully, or we can put water in them and let them soak for a couple hours and then make mac nut milk, or we can roast them. And when you roast them, you put them in the oven at about 350 degrees for 10 minutes, and then turn them, and then another couple minutes. You really got to watch them because they'll go really dark really fast.